Good morning, and happy Valentine's Day. At the 8 o'clock Mass, as the first reading ended, Father Bullock leaned over to me and said, "What a wonderful reading for Valentine's Day. Leprosy." But in a way, it's true, because there is a sign of God's love in that whole reading. I'm here this morning as a missionary, as you might be able to tell from all the pictures around. But I'm a missionary with a love story. It's a love story of God's love expressed through you and me. The first reading and the gospel are about leprosy. I remember years ago at St. Pius, we had a missionary priest who talked to us about working in Africa among a leper colony and just how devastating that disease is. In addition to the physical devastation, there's a separation we heard about in the first reading, where people become outcasts from their community. And sometimes that feeling of not belonging, of outcast, of being left behind, can be as devastating as the disease itself. Many of you know the story of the Archbishop Fulton Sheen Catholic Academy. We had a priest in the 1990s who was a missionary priest from the order of SMA, African Missionaries, Father Michael Adree, and he used to come every summer and spend the summers with us at St. Pius. And every year he would say, "You know, the plane flies two ways." It was his request that we come visit him. He was talking to the pastor, I realized that, but one week, as he said that, I heard these words come out of my lips: "I'll go." I thought, where did that come from? But as soon as I said those words, it was no longer a case of who, but when. Well, by the time we had arranged the trip, we had a new pastor. And I said to Father Michael, "I would like to do something while I'm in Africa. I'm not really a tourist." And he said, No, just come see my people and let me show you who I come to visit every summer. Well, after about the fourth or fifth time I insisted I wanted to do something, he said, "Well, we do need a new school." I'm thinking like paint a wall or, build a fence. But oh my goodness. But I took it to Father Schaub, who was a pastor at the time, and he said, "Why don't you go to Africa on a fact-finding mission?" So in August of 2008, my youngest son, who was 18 at the time, and I went to Africa to understand this need for a new school. We met with every group we could possibly meet with. We met with the village leaders, the tribal leaders, the educational leaders, the church leaders, the bishop. And they were with one voice: we need a new school, and we need a Catholic school. Because in that community, they had schools, but they were not serving the students. In fact, for 2 years in a row, not one single student graduated from the junior high and passed the entrance exam to be able to go to high school. In the moment they took that exam and did not pass, they became outcasts. They knew that the world was going to pass them by. And the community knew that as a community, they were outcasts, that somehow they didn't belong to the future, and the future was going to happen without them. My son and I returned, and we reported to the parish council what we had learned, and they said, "Go for it." And so we did. Now, when I was there, in our meeting with the bishop said to me, "I got to tell you something about us as African people. We can talk a good game, but sometimes we don't follow through. So I tucked that away, came home. I had an agreement that they would do all the work and I would just beg for the money. I didn't hear anything for like 6 months. And then one day I got an email. And I'd blown up the brochure that was in the email, and it's at the doors. They're recruiting teachers and students for a school that was going to start in the fall of 2009. I thought, I better get busy. So I began begging for money and have been begging for money ever since. I think there must have been some people in that African community, that little African village, who understood today's responsorial psalm. I turn to you, Lord, in times of trouble, and you fill me with the joy of salvation. Just imagine being a parent in that village, knowing you've got a kid who's pretty smart, and also knowing doesn't seem to be any chance for that child in this world. Sometimes you and I, are the instruments that God uses to fill others with the joy of salvation. And that school that we have built, you and I together, is a tangible expression of God's saving love. We did start that school in 2009 with a kindergarten and first grade. We actually met in the local church building. Our goal was to create a great Catholic school, provide a great Catholic education. The leaders of the village stress Catholic. In our village meeting, they said, Ghana has a lot of resources, but they'll be wasted unless we have moral leaders. And so they stressed the value of a moral Catholic education as being essential for their survival. Next year, we went down to pre-kindergarten, and the first graders became second graders. And we continued like that every year. As we outgrew the church, we moved into a library that was built in that community by Bob Carton, who was a member of this parish. But soon we outgrew that, but just in time, we purchased a 10-acre campus and began construction on our permanent site. Now, in the flyer that's been in the bulletin the last 2 weeks, you'll see a picture of that permanent facility. You'll notice it's got a completed first floor where we actually hold classes, and a second floor that just needs a roof. We can look at this gift of love that we have been providing for this community in Africa through pictures, the story of your generosity. You'll see in the pictures that completed structure, the first and second floor. We have about half the money for the roof, and we're looking to find the resources for the second half. We have a bus, and you'll see pictures of the bus if you walk around the church after Mass. The bus was essential because our school, although the village is isolated, the school is on a very busy road, and it wasn't safe for the students to walk along the road to go to school. Now, the thing I'm probably the most proud of, and maybe too proud of, is we have a restroom facility associated with our school that has flush toilets. Now, we may think, well, what's the big deal there, flush toilets? Well, let me tell you, when I go to that village, when I go to Africa, the only place I can be with a flush toilet is in one of the cities. And just the improved sanitation of being able to have flush toilets. And to support that, we have a well, and you'll see a picture of the well if you look at the pictures in the back. The picture doesn't look like anything important. It looks like somebody's got a garden hose they forgot to turn off. But that well is essential. It provides clean water for sanitation and eventually for being able to have an on-site cafeteria with clean, fresh running water. We also have a cistern to catch rainwater from the roof and store that for use. A septic tank, again, to be able to provide a clean, safe, sanitary environment for our students. We have a water tower, and that's another source of pride for the community is we've got our own water tower at the school. But our school is much more than the brick and the mortar. As I mentioned, I've been begging for money since 2009, and every year I would go to St. Pius and other parishes in the diocese, and I would tell them about the wonderful progress we were making. But most of that was with respect to the building, how we were progressing on building the buildings, and how the enrollment was growing. But our goal wasn't to build a building. Our goal was to have a great Catholic education. So there's always a little uncertainty in the back of my mind, how are we doing on the real goal? We got some indication of that a couple years ago when, for the first time ever, the district in Africa that the school is located in had an all-school academic competition. The Fulton Sheen Catholic Academies came in second in that competition. And Father Michael Adrie, who's been very, very busy with this project, devoted his life to it, told me, I'm happy we got second, but I think we won. And they just didn't want to give first prize to a Catholic school. And I thought, okay, he's a proud papa. I'll give him that. But now I think maybe he's right. In 2019, we had our first graduating class. All of our students passed the exit exam and were invited to attend a high school. You'll see by the doors a certificate of honor acknowledging the accomplishment of the Fulton Sheen Catholic Academy. Just think of if you're a parent and you've been living in a community with no hope, and suddenly it's real that you have hope. You're no longer an outcast. You've been invited to the banquet. What a powerful feeling. And it's through the love of God expressed through communities like this and others in the Peoria Diocese that this has happened. But it's much more than that. In that 2019 exam cycle, by Monsignor, you'll see a picture of Dagadoo. She was the top score in the district on the final exam. Over by me is Rita. Rita scored tied for second, high score in the district. Now, I especially like Rita because we went back and we looked at the pictures we've used over the years in our mission appeals, and we found a picture of Rita as a student a couple years before she took the exam, and that's right in front of me, in front of the pulpit. And Rita is there. She's sitting in the front row, got her book open, got Rita in big chalk letters on her desk. She's clearly not an outcast. She's clearly been invited in and is saying to the world, I'm going to take everything you have to give me. Second in the district. As I mentioned, it is a Catholic school. And for all you Jordan parents, you know what that means. Catholic school is not something you send your children to. It's a community you become a part of. Now, as a Jordan parent, you know what that means here. But I bet nobody has ever asked you to pick up a machete and go out in the field as a Jordan parent. But that's what we do in this school in Africa. Because on that 10-acre campus, we've put in farms. And so we have growing crops because our goal is to be operationally self-sufficient. So if you look again at those pictures throughout church, you'll see a field of pineapple and harvested pineapple. Work done by parents to support their Catholic education. This is truly their school, and we are just there to support them. Now, it's been said, when North America catches a cold, Africa gets pneumonia. We've seen that to be true. For the last year, we've struggled through COVID, and we know how hard that is for us. But it has devastated that community in Africa. They may not have gotten it as bad as we have in terms of the number of cases, but it came to a much more fragile environment. And so they have suffered greatly with COVID. We've seen that in the village as well as the school. We've seen students who've had to move because their parents need to find work somewhere else. Our school was closed. We had to delay the test for the graduates of 2020. And as a result, we don't yet have the results of that graduating class in terms of their exit exams. We expect that the chaos of COVID may have impacted our students on the exit exam, but we don't know. We're waiting and hoping and praying that even in spite of that, they can be successful. Our enrollment, which has been growing and growing and growing, has stabilized at about 200 students. We believe that once COVID is tamed, and we do believe it will be tamed, our enrollments will grow again, just because of the reputation of our school. Father Michael sent me some pictures this weekend showing that some of our students are actually having classes outside under the trees, so we can have appropriate social distancing in our school. Now, I'm not sure that would work here, but it works when you're 4 degrees from the equator, at least until we get to the rainy season. Which brings me to my appeal. We have an urgent need to find the funds for the second half of the roof so we can finish building the roof on our permanent facility and have adequate room for our students. The Fulton Sheen Catholic Academy began as the Great Recession came into full force. So it's only fitting that we're finishing up the construction during COVID, because that really makes it clear that it's God's work, not ours. This goes beyond something that we could have just made happen. That we have been asked by God to become part of His plan, and our yes has resounded throughout that community. And that's important, because today there are some who question whether we have a universal church, where we have a church where one part of the world cares about and loves another part of the world and people they have never met. Our school is a testament that there is a universal church, and that church is built on the love of Jesus Christ, and that love is made visible in that school. We're asking for your continued support for the Fulton Sheen Academy. Usually we have the brochures and the envelopes in the pews, but COVID has caused us to kind of change our process. We've had the brochure and the bulletin for the last couple of weeks so you understand what we're doing, the progress we're making. And the Fulton Sheen mission envelopes are in the cabinets at the church doors. So if God has put it on your heart to support this mission, you can just put your donation in one of the Fulton Sheen envelopes and put it in the regular collection baskets at the doors. If you'd like to write a check, make the check out to St. Pius, and in the memo field, say Fulton Sheen Academies, and the money will go to our school. Now, today's second reading, we hear, do everything for the glory of God. So that raises the question, how are we? How are you? How am I being called to glorify God? Is it through the school? If it is, wonderful. We thank you. We bless you. But maybe God is calling you to give him glory in another way. Follow God's prompting. So if it's not the school, that's fine. The important thing is you've thought about it and said, this is how God has asked that I glorify him. And then follow your prompting. I ask you as you leave church today to spend some time looking at the pictures. We have a number of pictures of the kids. And I ask that maybe as you walk by one of those pictures of the kids, stop and look. And understand, as you look at those faces, these are children who are no longer outcast, but have been invited to the banquet.